And welcome back, everybody. We are here, of course, for round 5 that will be starting very, very shortly at the 2023 Pokemon Utrecht special event. We heard a bit there from our lovely co-caster, Charlie, but prior to that, we had a very cool, dynamic sort of interview with a couple of the Spanish trainers as well.
Yeah, the interviewer itself was very exciting as well. No, it was fun to see how, borrowing our teams, sometimes it plays a bit better in someone's hands. It depends on the matchup, of course, as well. It is a funny thing to have where you make the team, but someone else borrowing it and doing a bit better with it. It's always, you're still proud of the team that you've made, so to say, but you kind of wish it was you.
I was going to expect you to end that with the note of, it's team play that matters.
I mean, yes, it is team play, don't get me wrong. There's no I in team, as you you give a team.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
Yeah, I was checking as well.
Double check. But yeah, exactly. I think it just goes to show the spirit of the game. It's all about sort of the interconnectivity of both of the trainers as well as just everyone within the community who wants and loves playing this game. You know, we mentioned that this has been a game that a lot of us have actually grown up with from childhood. I even remember myself, well, actually my brother bought the game back when, and the thing is, he kind of didn't like it. I was like, no, pass it over here.
But wait a minute.
But wait a minute, you don't see the value of it. And then here we are. Like, I mean, that just goes to show why it's so important to pass on this love for the game as well as the community.
You want to be a Pokemon trainer from a young age, and for me, the same thing. That is just, you start playing, and then eventually you find that competitive spirit where you're like, I'm kind of good at this game, beating all these NPCs. And then suddenly you have a friend that also plays the game, and you can connect with each other and try to play against each other. And you're suddenly like, all right, maybe my friend beat me last time, but this time I've got a new strategy. And developing those new strategies is exactly what VGC is about. We have so many strategies that can work, that we have seen work in this fact, because we have been for a while in Regulation B, and we have seen a lot of tournaments and a lot of different things work very well.
They really do. But I keep on flashing back to the back when we wanted to start playing and interconnecting with our opponent or like friends and such. We had to use that wired cable.
Yeah.
You remember the Game Boy Advance, I think. And it was just so fun. But now it's just like 20 years plus later. I don't even know how many years. But we've got, you know, an increase in technology. We've got the fact that the Pokemon Company keep on going and producing really, really good quality games and keep introducing these great Pokemon as well. A lot that we've seen highlighted with this current season in VGC. It has been incredible. A couple of the designs as well as the abilities make it even more fascinating and exciting for all players or people that want to get involved into competitive play.
They have been able to find these specific abilities that are so much different. For example, we have Purifying Salt on Garganacl, which is such a specific ability, and it is beautiful to see some things like that, or Good as Gold. These abilities, very specific, but proving their competitive worth as well, because these Pokemon are being used quite a lot, and it is fun to see. Zero to Hero as well. We have so many, actually. And
I know, right?
The designs of the Pokemon themselves are very fun as well. Personally, I am a big fan of Lechonk. It was
naturally.
It was revealed quite early, but if a Pokemon is around, I'm a fan.
I mean, Bellibolt is straight up there as well.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. I love Bellibolt as well.
Where is David Kotesh to bring Bellibolt once again? We may have left him back in Bochum, but he did incredibly well there too. So it's great and fascinating to actually see very veteran-like players, very creative team builders too, actually find a niche for those type of Pokemon to actually have a really good role to fill within their own team themselves. So at that point, I think Bellibolt was in the Salt Fest, it had Sucker Punch, it had Parabolic Charge, and I do not remember the final two moves.
Well, that was Muddy Water and, of course, Thunderbolt.
Yes.
And then it was also very interesting because it was that Terra Flying ability, negating its weakness to ground with that electric typing, of course, and just making sure that it can surely take some hits, because at the time Great Tusk was very popular as well, and just
Still
electromorphosis. Electromorphosis. It's it's hit, it's still tanky, it's still quite healthy. It will hit you back with a strong electric move there.
Yep.
And parabolic charge just being a move that hits everyone on the field, except if you have a ground type, it won't affect it, of course. But you use, well, with the attack that you've taken, you take a little bit of their HP back to you. So that belly bolt, enjoying that very much.
Exactly. So finding those sort of niches is really, really fascinating. I know that I think we covered as well in that interview on the floor with Guillermo that we were mentioning. There's a lot of this format at the current moment, the current Regulation B rules, that has been explored. But just the other week, we did see a couple of better niche Pokemon popping up. We saw the Lilligant come from nowhere. I think Nails, Nick Navarre, should I say, his nickname is Nails, had actually utilized this a couple of weeks back in another American regional. Did really well about it. I believe it did definitely top cut. But we did, of course, see Abdullah Mohayyuddin do fascinating and actually win at his first ever event.
Yeah, it's quite incredible to see how, well, being new at the game, you are still able to put the same amount of effort and be able to win. If there's just something that works, you might have cracked the code for that certain tournament. Just being able to, win it all.
Yeah. Well, that's exactly it. That's the name of the game, right?
Yeah, it is.
But yes, of course, I believe we are currently going ahead and getting our round 5 trainers set up. So please do bear with us at the current moment. I believe it is going to be between Nathan Rouby versus Nate Wright. At the current moment, we do, however, have some standings available that we could go ahead and actually check out to see the current progress of the trainers in the event so far. So got a couple of 4-0s. I say a couple, I see 16.
Oh. Quite a few, actually.
Quite a few, indeed.
And a few names that I actually do recognize as well. Like, just out of my head, Akram Hamdi on the 5th place is actually a Dutch player as well.
Oh,
and, personal,
nice.
I know him, and like he's a very good player. So happy to see him do this well as well. And we have other big names, of course, as well. Thomas Rouby, as we know, the French player, very strong, very good as well. We've got Eric Rio. Wow, we've got a lot of
it's
good
no
players
surprise to
today.
see a couple of those names.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. These names are meant to be here.
Oh, 100%. I want to give a special shout out to Sam Bentham as well, a local UK player, good friend of mine as well, doing incredible at 4-0. So lovely to see that sort of interaction going. A lot of different varieties when it comes to all of the various regions within Europe. I don't at the moment see any international, external from Europe, continental Europe, should I say, players, but a lot of 4-0s. A lot of 4-0s and a lot of new names as well that I don't actually recognize, such as I believe...
There's a few that I don't...
Yeah.
Yeah, there are a few new ones, but that's just showcasing what we were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
If you can crack the tournament code, you can win it all.
Oh, 100%. You just need to have a very good deep run. That's what you need to do. You need to have the correct matchups. You need to feel confident
we have
with
more
your team.
4-0s.
And we've got more 4-0s.
Oh, wow. There's quite a list. Of course, we have a lot of players here today. We have close to 500, so it does make sense that we have a lot. And as you see, there's a few names that we know. Again, we have Nate Wright, Eduardo Cunha, of course. We have a few that we are familiar with, of course.
Yeah.
Of course, it is very interesting to see. I'm wondering if there's going to be another list of 4-0s now.
Oh, no. Well, you never know. But at the current moment, I think being able to go 4-0 is, of itself, incredibly difficult.
That is, these are the players that are... Like,
they're there. They're in
there.
form. They're on tap with what they need to do. They understand the win conditions. They know how to go about it. And more importantly, they understand their flowcharts, because you need to have a very good, thorough flowchart in order to sort of best handle the threats of the current meta, which is absolutely incredible and good to do with other people. You know, like, of course, naturally speaking, there will be the trainers that are still doing their own preparation, but it's just very helpful sometimes to have the additional sort of other people to bounce ideas back from, maybe even see and better understand certain types of ways to train particular Pokemon. We've seen, I think, the photosynthesis booster energies. You can sort of reallocate a couple of those stats around based on the priorities that that role needs to fill.
Yeah, exactly. It is also interesting because when you're seeing, when you're building a team with other players, they can have a fresh view upon your team and see like, oh, you're not doing so well against that, because some of those players have more experience with some other Pokemon or some other course.
Right.
For example, if you're not familiar with Annihilate Maushold, I'm the guy that can help you a bit.
What's that? I've definitely not seen that at all.
That is something that I am quite familiar with that matchup because I do tend to play it a lot as well. So it is one of those things where if you have a player that is known to play that, you are a little bit more prone to know what to do against it as well, just to have their insight.
Well, 100%. And I think Maushold, Annihilate, that sort of a combination duo, has been something that's actually been quite prevalent ever since Series 1/Regulation A, right?
Yep.
So just at the beginning of the season, and initially, I think there were different ways of running it. You had the Maushold being more offensive.
Yep.
You had, for example, I think, was it the Wide Lens?
Yeah, Wide Lens with Population Bomb.
Yes, which deals, no spoiler alert, should I say, a lot of damage.
A lot of damage.
A lot of damage. But yes, so now that's actually outed to, with that Technician ability, more towards the Friend Guard sort of action in order to facilitate the beat-up strategy with that Annihilate by its side, further boosting its Rage Fist, which is a Ghost-type signature move for it, which deals absolutely incredible damage when put in the correct conditions.
It is a very scary Pokemon to come up against. Rage Fist, boosting by 50 every time it gets hit. So you like to beat up your own Annihilate with your Maushold, just making sure that Rage Fist gets boosted. And Annihilate being a great addition for Primeape itself, giving a bit more HP. And people have been playing other sets with it as well, which you have the Scarfight Gambit version, for example, as well.
Yeah.
Where just to make sure, oh, this Pokemon is a threat to the rest of my team, I'm just going to get rid of it. I'm going to try a Final Gambit.
Oh, 100%. And I think it's a very valid strategy as well. One that most definitely needs to be feared. But we do have our players on the screen right now. Nathan Rouby versus Nate Wright. It is a French representative versus a Canadian. So we actually, there we go. There's one of the players that we were talking about that has made the trip over all the way from Canada potentially straight into the lovely Netherlands, Utrecht. So it's great to see this sort of dedication in order to make sure that, right, I want to try to get a snowball effect going. I want to try to compete at the best sort of level that I can to be able to get the best sort of reward I can from it.
Yeah, exactly. And these players, not all traveling far. You have the French player not doing that far because the Netherlands are a bit closer, of course. But they are both players that are 4-0 as well. So Showcase, we are going to be able to see that further step of mindset that they can make to try and see what their win con is, what is their opponent's win con, trying to see and puzzle the pieces together to get your own kind of victory as well.
Yeah, exactly. And I think we've actually had a bit of a tap onto the teams they will be running. So we've got Nathan Rouby with the Hatterene. We've got the female Indeedee, the Annihilate, the Maushold, the Tyranitar, and the Golden Go. Whilst over on Nate Wright's side, we've got the Fluttermane, Iron Judulus, Maushold, Palafin, Arcanine, and another Annihilate too.
Oh, we have two Annihilates, and we do have two Mausholds as well. On the other hand, we have the Hatterene Indeedee combo, which is pretty popular, which always has been pretty popular in the beginning. Now a bit set aside for that Armarouge, because that is, of course, the Pokemon with the expanding force, trying to make sure. But this Hatterene on its own is actually looking quite kind of nice right now.
It is, because it's got a lot of interesting choices that have actually been selected and traded onto it. It does have access to an Expert Belt. Coverage-wise, it's got Dazzling Gleam and Giga Drain, whilst actually deciding to go for Charm and, of course, Trick Room at the end of it. So quite an interesting choice there. You're able to pair that up with a Grass Terra Type 2 in order to essentially change what was a Psychic Fairy Pokemon into a pure Grass with that Terrestrial.
Yeah, it is interesting. I'm very excited to see what will come out of that as well, because most of the time you see Hatterene with the Indeedee, of course, trying to use those psychic moves, but just now putting that aside, we have the Indeedee itself using the psychic instead of trying to at least use its own psychic terrain, because you have been seeing a lot of Indeedee with Dazzling Gleam trying to cover for those dark types as well. But Hattery normally now being able to cover that, while the Indeedee can just go for those strong psychics in that terrain, which is very impressive to see.
And I think the Hatterene female Indeedee combo, of course, we had seen in the past, is something that has apparently carried over from Sword and Shield, but we do have the achievements of both of our trainers. We've got Nate Wright on the left, whilst we have Nathan Rouby giving a little wave to the camera, hey guys, to the right-hand side too. Nate Wright actually been able to achieve a couple of top cuts. Back in Philadelphia Regionals, was able to achieve the top 16 mark, whilst over in Charlotte Regionals, top 4. So we've got Nate, which has actually done quite well at US-based country events, should I say, major events in the past, or over the past couple of years, which is quite nice to actually see them back.
Honestly, that is true. We want to see as many players as we can. Globally, of course, it's always a fun time. No matter where you go, Pokemon event will always welcome you for you to play and have some fun. And we do have the teams again on the screen. We do now have the team from Nate Wright, having the Fluttermane, Arcanine, Palafin, Maushold, Annihilate, and the Iron Jugglers itself. Very interesting combos, because earlier, as I mentioned, I'm quite of an Annihilate Maushold
connoisseur.
Connoisseur. You know, yeah, exactly.
It was quite coincidental that we were actually talking about it, whilst both of these trainers do actually have access to it. In this scenario, like we've said, the usual sort of setup mode of Annihilate and Maushold. You've got the Rage Fist, you've got the Bulk Up set, Drain Punch. Quite nice going against their opponent, of course. Whilst over on the other side, we've got actually Palafin, which is something worth calling out here with the Grass Terra type choice, accompanied by the Arcanine. So those two Pokemon and roles wanted to at least cover for any sort of redirection, a Moondisk sort of Pokemon. Maybe not Brute Bonnet as much as in the past, but a Moondisk, as we know, is still a big threat.
Yeah, and on the other side, as we said, Annihilate Maushold back at it again. And we have the Hatterene also with the Terra Grass. Indeed, also Terra Grass. Amoonguss is a fearful Pokemon to run with, to be honest. And then we have Golden Go with a Live Orb, where we have Make It Rain, Thunderbolt, Massive Block, Recover, not even running Shadow Ball.
No need to, apparently. I think we have seen that Nathan has actually already got coverage when it comes to Rage Fist, so at least they are covered from that end. However, the Golden Go seems to really be wanting to get rid of any sort of opposing either flying types or maybe even water types, hence why we've got the Tyranitar there. Tyranitar is a very good weather setter. I think we already covered it prior in the earlier sections of the stream, where it's actually in a really good position to do well. Having the Assault Vest, having, of course, the Flying Terra type, does allow it to take even more specially offensive damage dealt to its side. That in conjunction, of course, with the Sandstorm, giving it that natural boost. So actually being able to go ahead and see what it can do in this matchup will be very, very interesting. Iron Jugulus is slightly threatened by the Tyranitar and is not going to be able to deal as much in return.
Yeah, Iron Jugglers is interesting to see, because we mentioned it earlier on stream as well, where it is a bit bulkier, has that potential to tailwind, but now with the Assault Fest, just being able to make sure and cover and do a lot of potential damage with its stab, and of course the Tyranitar itself being a little bit special. Oh, but we are in the game, and we have my favorite lead there. We have the Annihilate Maushold, and on the other side we have the Annihilate Fluttermane.
A normal and ghost pairing. Quite nice, seen from both sides of our trainers here. Fluttermane will naturally be able to outspeed most likely everything on the field. At this point, you can go ahead and actually utilize any damage, immediate damage actually, with the choice spec. So I think in this scenario, Nathan does need to try to adapt versus Nate's sort of very offensive lead here. Perhaps even force a Terrastal from this Annihilate.
Yeah, Annihilate, of course, having that Terra Fire, being able to resist any Fairy-type move coming into it, while the Floodmane is able to go for a potential Moonblast. Of course, you have the Maushold next to it, being able to redirect with those Follow Me's, and that goes the same, of course, that is the same thing for both Mausholds, really. But we do see the Terra coming out onto that Floodmane, going for that Terra Fairy, trying to make sure that this next Fairy move will hurt quite a bit.
Yes, exactly that. It's going to be packing an even greater punch as we're going to be seeing the terrestrial phenomenon occurring over on the other side of the field. Annihilate does opt to go for the Fire Terror. Makes a lot of sense. You want to make sure you do not take as much damage as you can. However, any sort of damage dealt onto it, even if it is not very effective, will further boost the Rage Fist.
Yeah, and we see the protect from the opposing Mousehold while the Fluttermane trying to focus down on this Mousehold, trying to guarantee a KO there. Trying to deal with Mousehold as fast as possible is good. Just making sure that the front guard is gone, and we see the Annihilate do the same strategy, but just going for that Dream Punch. Oh! Predicting that the Annihilate was going to not protect, going for that Super Fang, trying to chip it down as much as possible. You'd still hit it, boosting its Rage Fist, but having it at half HP would have helped quite a bit as well.
It really, really would. And I think in this scenario, we've got Fluttermane, which is now locked in Moonblast. So you can't go ahead and try to re-select any other move. You need to sort of focus down on it or force a switch on your end, a defensive one. At this situation, it wouldn't make sense to try to go ahead for the defensive switch out. You just want to try to deal as much damage as you can to get rid of the Mousehold. Over on Nathan's side, which Nate is looking to go for as the Moonblast does come out and does pick up that very powerful KO. One hit needed, nothing more. It is out for the count in game one, whilst Nathan's Annihilate will try to do the same over on Nate's side, but will be met with that very lovely little protect.
Yeah, the Mousehold surviving the first turn of Dream Punch is very important to it, because it was able to just hang on this next turn to go for a protect, as we see another redirector, being that in DD as well, being able to possibly follow me as well, just trying to make sure that the Annihilate doesn't get damaged too much. But yeah, now it is in kind of an awkward position, because it did get the Psychic Seed just now, and Choice Specs, Fluttermane, Moonblast will do quite a bit, but the Dream Punch will, if the Mousehold is staying in, it will be KO'd by that as well. So kind of an awkward position. Do you want to switch? Do you want to make sure that... oh, we do see a switch there from the Mousehold going out into the Annihilate, trying to predict there if there's going to be a Dream Punch there. A beautiful switch if it is going to happen. We see the Moonblast from Fluttermane just going into that Indeedee, doing whopping damage as we see the Dream Punch come out and not hit a target at all.
Very nice, as Psychic will be targeting down that Fluttermane, not able to actually deal a lot of damage. Naturally speaking, female Indeedees don't tend to have a lot of offensive training dealt onto them. Even if the Psychic terrain is on the field, at least it gets a tiny bit of a boost, but when going up against a Fluttermane, which is very well known for its special defensive capabilities, not going to be able to deal as much.
Yeah, we see the protect coming out from the Indeedee, just not wanting to get hit by another of those Moonblasts, as we see those Moonblasts being targeted right into that. While this both Annihilates are here onto the field, and we see one Annihilate bulk up. Possibly they are just as fast as each other, or one is faster than the other, depends on the tree, and they are both thinking the same thing. We are flexing our muscles right now and going for that bulk up.
You just caught my one-liner. I was about to say, we see a lot of flexing action going on between both of these mirrored Annihilates.
Just like they were flexing, I had to flex on you as well.
Naturally
I won the
speaking,
speed tie there.
I wouldn't expect anything less of you. So it is interesting to actually see the speed tiering there. Double protect attempt coming out, not able to actually succeed, which will mean the Fluttermane is going to pick up the KO with the Moonblast, powered by not only Choice Specs as well as that Fairy Terror type situation, as Rage Fist comes out from the Annihilate on Nathan's side. Will be targeting the Fluttermane and actually missing the KO, whilst Nate is going to be setting up a second bulk up, starting to actually tread back the momentum on their side of the field.
Yeah, it is getting kind of scary, because it seems like Nate is forcing a 1v4 situation if they are trying to make sure that everything but the Annihilate is gone, to then finally take care of that Annihilate. With the Tyranitar coming in, Sand being set up as well. Fluttermane will probably be going down after this turn no matter what, because of that Sandstorm. But you still have an Annihilate onto the field that can potentially Dream Punch with a +2 attack onto that Tyranitar, making sure that that won't be staying there much longer. Meanwhile, the Annihilate with the bulk up not doing so much right now.
No, it's not able to, and I think in this situation, Nathan's got very limited resources. Both of their redirectors are out for the count. Tyranitar is on the field, but in this situation, speed tiering-wise, Nate definitely has the advantage and will actually be preserving the Flutter Mane for a more end-game scenario. Bringing the Iron Jugulus in, we know for a fact this is an Assault Vest Iron Jugulus. It's not going to come into play at the current moment, but it does have that additional fourth move. Another bulk up from Nathan's Annihilate, and there we go. We're going to see the Tyranitar. Unfortunately, had no way to avoid that Drain Punch. 4 times super effective move coming out from the Annihilate due to the fact that Terra type slot has already been utilized by its partner.
Yeah, now we are in that situation that mentioned earlier. This is a 1v4 situation. Annihilate has been seen doing many things, and it has been able to bring back situations like these thanks to Dream Punch and Reach Fist, of course. But it is looking a bit hard when you still have that Choice Specs Flutter Mane in the back that could try it with a Shadow Ball later on. Your own Annihilate as well, being the other Annihilate also being there, just will Rage Fist as soon as you will. So quite scary, and we do have the switch in from the mouse hold into the Dream Punch into the mouse hold as well, and mouse hold is back at it again. It's gone. But at the same time, we still have this Annihilate that is free to do whatever it wants right now.
At this point, I think it does have that additional sort of a position to allow itself to get another bulk up as it actually does so. So not a lot of riddle room for Nathan's side of the field. Yes, we're going to get a bit of chip damage dealt at the end of the turn, but there is going to be a leftovers recovery, however, over on Nate's side. I think this scenario, like we've discussed, I think Nathan's done a really good job into trying to still keep within the game, but it's just unfortunately going to be outsped by this Flutter Mane that can deal a lot of damage, and then you've got the follow-up of the Rage Fist. So both of those in combination likely will pick up the KO, and even if they don't, we've got that Iron Jugulus, which is going to threaten in the back.
Yeah, exactly. Bulk ups do help on the defensive side, but now with the Iron Jugglers and the Flutter Mane in the back, hitting on that special side will do a bit more, of course. You have the possibility of going for Air Slash or Dark Pulse as well, which have the possibility to flinch as well if you're going faster.
Oh, but we're actually going to see the Annihilate over on Nathan's side outspeed the Iron Jugulus. That may be an indication due to the item of how this training has been done onto the Iron Jugulus. But no, we see a side hit in order to further boost the Rage Fist and deal even more damage, bring it down to just half of its HP as we see the Citrus Berry coming into activation. So very nice, slick play from Nate's side. You just want to ensure that you keep on enhancing the damage output of that Rage Fist in combination with your multiple bulk up sets.
Exactly, and unfortunately did get the special defense drop with that flash cannon there. We do know that this Annihilate to our side is also a Vital Spirit instead of what most people would be running is the Defiant ability, not activating then. So hopefully not gonna try and hit it too many times anymore, but that was a beautiful play, trying to make sure that its Rage Fist would be boosted first, and I'm sure of it, surely we have seen a lot of damage come out as well already.
Well, Nathan's got a very speedy Annihilate. I think we've definitely confirmed that, as it just seems to be outspeeding both Nate's Annihilate as well as the Iron Jugulus. Will be going ahead, picking up the KO via that Drain Punch. You get a bit of recovery back, which is really, really good for Nathan's side of the field. They're not completely out of the game at all. Rage Fist, however, will come out now, will deal a bit more than half damage worth there, forcing Nathan to just keep on trying to go for Drain Punches, but the problem is Annihilate is still the Ghost type. You're going to have to try to force this way through with your own Rage Fist, hope if you can't even pick up the KO naturally due to the multiple bulk ups that have been set by Nate's Annihilate, to land a critical hit. But the problem is Flutter Mane's there as well, and we know how powerful Flutter Mane is.
Yeah, a Flutter Mane being there, and it is also, as we've just seen, the last turn of Sandstorm, meaning even if the opposing Annihilate would protect, the Flutter Mane would definitely still survive and still be faster to make this KO happen, as we see with the Power Gem KOing this Annihilate that has been standing on the field for the beginning of the game.
Yeah, pretty much. I think that was outstanding board play from Nate's side of the field, making sure that they at least go ahead and preserve the Flutter Mane from around the early to mid stages of the end of the game, just in the back, because you know that if you get rid of all of Nathan's other Pokemon, we've got the double redirection, we had the Tyranitar, which unfortunately was felled by the Drain Punch, or Annihilape over on Nate's side, you're left with an Annihilape.
Yeah.
An Annihilape that can get outsped by a Choice Specs Power Gem capable Flutter Mane, which is most definitely not what you want to see ahead of you.
It's definitely not one you want to see, because or it threatens you with a Shadow Ball potentially, or it threatens you with that Power Gem. So it is quite terrifying to have. Now, what would you really switch out here? Because that Annihilape was working decently, but the issue of too many redirectors, you don't really have that offensive presence, and Tyranitar in the back, when opponent of course has an Annihilape as well, wasn't able to do a lot. It was an excellent switch there by Nate.
It's a bit passive.
It's a bit passive,
right?
Yeah.
It's a bit passive, and I think what you need to try to do if you're Nathan, you need to try to force that immediate pressure from your side of the field. Yes, of course, the setup of having Mousehold next to Annihilape is good. However, you are still being outsped by your opponent's side of the field. So maybe getting a Trick Room setup might be a way through this. Because I think as long as you can force the way that, okay, Annihilape is the fastest out of the two Annihilapes over on Nathan's side. Maybe that sort of is counterproductive as to what you're trying to achieve by going for Trick Room. However, it's all of the rest of your Pokemon that seem to still be slow in comparison to Nate's Pokemon, where Nate is always going to make sure, as long as they have the fastest, most highly offensive damage output Pokemon in the back for the mid to end game, they'll be fine.
Okay, but we are seeing some kind of switches. We do see the Flutter Mane and the Iron Jugglers this time as the lead instead of the Mousehold plus the Flutter Mane. But on the other hand, we still have the Mousehold Annihilape. And we already have seen that this Annihilape is quite fast, but not fast enough for the Flutter Mane, of course. But now maybe different plays will be done, because now expecting this Mousehold to protect, possibly going for that Terra Fairy still, and trying to deal as much damage to this Annihilape is very much possible. It will probably go for that Terra 5, because that is just pretty safe to do so. And we do see a switch out from the Iron Jugglers into its own Annihilape this time around.
Yeah, interesting play here. You want to start getting any sort of damage going into that slot to start ticking the timer for the Rage Fist boost. However, no Terrastals from either of these trainers. Just double protect from Nathan's side, whilst a Moonblast does go ahead and actually target into the Mousehold, wanting to just prioritize that, get rid of at least the first wall of redirection, as likely there's a chance that female Ndidi is going to be in the back for Nathan too. However, we've got the scenario. Annihilape is now on the field for Nate 2. You could start going ahead and either pressuring the Mousehold with a double up to pick up the KO, or start setting up your own bulk ups and go through the similar strategies of starting to get those Rage Fist boosts ticking.
Yeah, it was a good play by Nathan to go for a double protector, because of course that Flutter Mane is locked in one move because of those choice specs. So trying to see what your opponent is gonna do. So do I necessarily have to Terrestrialize? Do I maybe have something else in the back to Terrestrialize? And we see a switch out from the Mousehold coming out from Nathan's side, going to his Romago, which is that Golden Go, of course, and Golden Go doesn't mind taking a Bloom Blast if possible.
You see, I like this adaptation. You have that more well-known damage output user on your side of the field. Yes, you have to still take into consideration the speed tiering. However, at least it is there to deal immediate offensive pressure and take this Moonblast quite well. I'd say quite well that it's still very powerful onto to a Pokemon that resists.
Wow, I was quite surprised how much that did. That is, of course, this Golden Go is looks to be a bit more offensive because it is carrying that live up. As we see, the Annihilape flexing yet again on each other. I'm sorry for stealing your joke yet again.
You did it again. It's all right. I'm putting it in the book. Yep. Don't worry. We'll discuss it later on. But I think it is very crucial to go ahead and try to make sure that you've got a very good awareness of board state whilst not utilizing your Terra just yet. We saw that Nathan did feel threatened enough to actually go for the Fire Terra onto the Annihilate. Wants to make sure that even if there is that Moonblast, that we know that the Flood Main is locked into going into that slot, at least it is going to be well protected. Nate has not utilized Terra just yet, so at least from their side of the field, they will be able to have a bit more flexibility in sort of handling this Golden Go if need be.
We do see the switch out from the Flutter Main, feeling pretty threatened. Even when it terrestrialized, Omega Ring would still have hurt it. And we have the Iron Jugglers come in, of course, with that Assault Vest, willing to take that a bit better. And we have the Annihilate going for its own Terra, and that being the Terra Water. And Terra Water, of course, Water being able to resist Make It Rain, helping that as well. But we mentioned it earlier, that Golden Go does not have Shadow Ball, it has Thunderbolt instead.
Exactly, so this may prove to be quite a decisive turn. Rage Fist goes into the Iron Jugulus, does pick up a critical hit, but of course that does resist. And we just see yet another bulk up, so it's the battle of setups right here between these two trainers. And this is really nice for Nate. You're able to keep those, having those attacks incoming into that slot, further boosting the Rage Fist even further. So you're just creating a monster right now over on Nate's side that's just waiting for the opportune moment to start sweeping away.
Exactly, and now it has been hit by that Maker Ring, not taking that much damage, meaning its Rage Fist just got boosted. That is now a 100 base power Rage Fist, and he's been able to do 2 bulk ups as well, meaning this is suddenly getting very scary as well. On the opposing side, the Golden Go was able to do quite a bit of damage actually to the Iron Jugglers, even with that Assault Vest.
And I think with the Iron Jugulus on the field, it is going to still be undersped by the Annihilate over on Nathan's side. So it may be privy, yes, and it is going to be taken out right now. Golden Go does have the Thunderbolt. Let's not forget, and this Annihilate over on Nate's side is indeed a Water type. The Predict there, unfortunately, not turning out quite well for Nate. We're going to be seeing the Thunderbolt coming out from the Golden Go, dealing a good, respectable amount of damage there, thanks to the further enhancement of damage output via the Life Orb. So a couple of interesting sort of expectations from both of these trainers going into that turn.
Yeah, exactly, because he does have, that, of course, that mouse hold in the back, so a Rage Fist into that Golden Go could have spelled disaster if he switched out to the mouse hold, but wanting to try and predict that, went for that Drain Punch, just trying to surprise your opponent and being like, oh, I'm on to you, but thinking one step even further, Nathan, thinking, no, I'm not going to do that. You know, might seem like the optimal play, but I think you will be predicting that and try to do as much damage as he could with that Golden Go as well.
And I think it's the delicacies of understanding and not getting too much in your head, but also trying to get into your opponent's head. It's very tough. It is a well-known skill to try to work with. And I think when you're at this high level of play, you feel like, okay, surely my opponent will expect this sort of move, so I'm expecting them to go the other way. But then you could just make the safe play, the most optimal play. And we've seen Nathan opt to go for the Protect. We have double Mouse Hold, double Annihilate on the field, and multiple Protects to take into consideration as a very passive stalemate type of turn. But interesting to see the Water versus the Fire.
Exactly. Targeting that Annihilate, just trying to make sure to hit something at least, because yeah, you always had the threat of the Golden Go switching out to that mouse hold, as we have seen, and because that Annihilate was welcome, there's a little bit less of a chance of it actually switching out as well, because that Annihilate is there, of course, to try and sweep as much as possible. But now we're back at it again with the mouse hold Annihilate, which is very interesting because do you Rage Fist? Do you Shadow Ball?
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of mind games, right, that goes into this turn. But we do see the mouse hold opting to go for Protect. Over on Nathan's side, Drain Punch does target into the mouse hold on Nate's side. Picks up a critical hit. I'm not sure how much that matters at this point, but we know for a fact that in the end of the day, Rage Fist will be targeting down the correct slot. It goes for the Annihilate, expecting the Protect and no redirection. Very lovely play from Nate. Of course, Citrus Berry is the item of choice on Nathan's Annihilate, as opposed to Nate's passive HP recovering at the end of turn leftovers.
Yeah, it's interesting to see because both items, of course, healing a bit of damage, but trying to make sure that one just healing a bit more in one turn, in one sitting, because now we know that the Annihilate from Nathan's side is actually going to be able to survive another Rage Fist now, because thanks to that Citrus Berry not doing exactly over half that much. And now Fluttermane being on the field again, being a big threat, could potentially power gem, but then there's the mouse hold.
Well, exactly, there's the mouse hold. You know the redirection is still active on the field if Nathan so chooses to go for it. We know the fact that the Fire Terror type is still on the Annihilate. You don't 100% feel comfortable to go for the Moonblast target slot here, because you are going to get locked in, but at least you might be able to cover this mouse hold, pick up a KO if you get lucky, and then allow the Rage Fist to go in and finish off the Annihilate. But no luck here, no critical hits, which likely would have, of course, picked up the KO. Rage Fist comes out from Nathan's Annihilate, picks up the KO onto Fluttermane, having a very reversed sort of mirrored situation as opposed to game one. Now, where, of course, Nathan's Annihilate was left all on its lonesome self. Now we've got the complete opposite. Nate's Annihilate is on its own.
This is something that can happen if you're playing Annihilate. Your opponent tries to focus down as much of the support as possible, but now a good adjustment by Nathan by bringing out that Golden Go. Golden Go is still threatening with the necessary power with Thunderbolt and Make It Rain, but then also having that Ghost typing, making sure that Annihilate has to choose, is that Golden Go coming in or not? What am I supposed to do? This is literally a 50-50 to make.
It's a 50-50, but we know that Nathan has the advantage of having the additional resource availability, and the fact that the Annihilate over on Nathan's side is going to always outspeed Nate's Annihilate based on all of the multiple interactions we've got, allowing the beat up combination to go into the Rage Fist KO, forcing a game 3.
Wow, that was amazing. I'm happy to see this. It is interesting to see like these Annihilates work a bit differently, because as we've seen on Nathan's side, it's that his Annihilate is pretty fast, has that Citrus Berry, Terrafire, and still the same Pokemon seeing on the other side, being trained a bit different. Same moveset maybe, but trained and Terra type completely different, can make the match so much more, well, interesting to see, like how and what they are played.
100%. And I think the fact that we saw Nathan able to bring it back from a situation where they had lost game 1, going into game 2, and that adjustment of the Golden Go, I think it really just goes to show why it's important. They were able to recognize that post the game 1 analysis, saying, okay, cool, how can I bring this back? How can I force a game 3? I think Golden Go could really go far, especially the fact that we know that Annihilate over on Nate's side is of the Water Terror. So what better Pokemon to start forcing that specially offensive pressure onto than a Golden Go?
Yeah, exactly. And looking at the teams again, I think that there's one Pokemon that could prove to be a little bit crucial, and that is that Palafin. Possibly, because you of course have that Annihilate with that Terra Fire. If you're able to force it to go for that, you do have the Palafin as well in the back, being able to threaten it with any water moves potentially. If you lead Palafin and Fluttermane, for example, your opponent has to choose what am I going to do, because the mouse can redirect only once.
Yeah. Do you play the short game or do you play the long game? Exactly. Knowing that the Palafin is always going to be in the back after it's going to be switching out in order to go from the 0 to hero form. But then I think it just depends on what are your priorities if you're Nate. Do you need to bring Palafin? Does this adjustment need to be made? Do you have access to priority? But then you've got the female Ndidi. However, I don't actually think we saw the female Ndidi unless we not game 2. So that may have still potentially been in the back. I'm not sure if there may be any sort of reliance to it in anticipation of any sort of adaptations of the Palafin. But no Palafin to be seen. We do see a female Indeedee and Golden Go lead over on Natan's side, as opposed to Nate now going back to the Game 1 lead that they chose, being the Mousehold and the Flutter main scene. The Psychic Seed also giving a further bolster to female Indeedee's special defense.
And we're back at it again with the Ghost type moves and of course the normal type redirectors, meaning that it is never safe to click any Ghost type move. But that is the thing with his Golden Go. It doesn't even have one. It's so easy to just click that beautiful Make It Rain. You threaten immediately the Mousehold. You do a lot of damage to the Flutter main as well. So it's looking like a bit of a better position for Natan. As we see the Flutter main actually switch out to the Iron Jugglers, we know that it has the Assault Vest, and next to Frengard, Mousehold might potentially take this Make It Rain a bit better.
Yeah, most definitely, especially with the fact that this Iron Jugulus, as we know, is the Assault Vest variant. It will likely be able to handle this damage output coming out from it. Unless it's a Thunderbolt, there is a read from Natan, but that shall be seen. The Water-type Terra revealed, of course, on the Golden Go. Superfang goes into the female Indeedee whilst we have a nasty plot. Oh no, I feel like this might either be a Trick Room setup. Yes, it is, which is very, very cool to see from Natan's side. Although the Assault Vest Iron Jugulus, we know it is actually incredibly slow. However, we don't know the interaction with speed tiering with the opposing Golden Go. Which one's faster, which one's slower within the context of Trick Room.
Yeah, it's still interesting to see because that Jugulus does have access, of course, to Snarl, which is a special attack, lowering attack that can be redirected. And it is fun to see him adapt, as you said earlier after Game 1. Maybe go for the Trick Room option, and now seeing that Trick Room option with that Golden Go, it's looking pretty good there.
Yeah, it really, really is. At the current moment, we will have to see what the speed tiering does look like between the two Pokemon. As we see Hatterene actually being switched in here. I think Natan is trying to go all hands in with this Trick Room mode. The Steel Terror coming out from the Iron Jugulus will of course allow it to take any sort of making rains, even at +2, quite nicely, because there's a lot of different multipliers that are stacked on top of each other when it comes to the defensive capabilities of this Iron Jugulus. As we do get confirmation, it is the Make It Rain, and even though this is an outrageously powerful Pokemon, Life Orb +2 due to the nasty plot, just about 60 HP's worth, which is insane, as the Snarl is going to be able to come out now, further bringing this Golden Go back down to neutral of its special attack.
Yeah, suddenly it's looking a bit harder here because, of course, we have seen the moveset from the Hatterene not really having anything to hit the Iron Jugulus. Right. Now, truly being Iron as well, with that Steel typing, just being able to cover so much, and with that Assault Vest just being that bulky right now, suddenly turning the whole situation around. Even though the Trick Room is up, the Iron Jugulus not looking that bad right now.
No, it's really not, especially the fact that the Hatterene is now still at -1 of its special attack. It's not going to be able to have as much damage output, as we are going to be seeing a couple of changes going into the field, as we see super effective on the Annihilate, not so effective, naturally speaking, on the Jugulus. And the Annihilate actually goes down. Even more damage dealt onto it, a critical hit.
Yeah, a critical hit. Might have been the decider. Now, Golden Go was still at +1 and still live or boosted, let's not forget. But, no, it wasn't neutral.
It was at neutral, I believe, yes.
Actually. Quite a bit of damage from the Iron Jugglers into that Golden Go. Now, did take a bit more because, of course, Mousehold did have to switch out, had to go for a bit there. And now coming back in with that Frengard to make sure that it can redirect any potential moves, for example. And the Iron Jugglers still being able to deal quite a bit of damage or a bit more of control with the Snarl.
And I think we've still got a couple of turns remaining for Trick Room. Not working 100% as well as Nate would like, with being able to sort of counteract it. Nate's gone ahead and actually lost their Annihilate, which we saw how crucial and pivotal it has been in the first 2 games. No reveal of the final Pokemon over on Natan's side, however. Likely to still be in the back waiting for the opportune moment for Trick Room to end. I think it's sort of safe to anticipate it being Annihilate. But we shall find out as we're going to be seeing this switch out of the Golden Go, wanting to be preserved for a later point of this game. And there it is. The Annihilate is now on the field.
Suddenly that Annihilate being on the field makes me realize how much still of a threat it is. Flash cannon coming out into that Hatterene, but that Annihilate still being there. Big KO there onto the Hatterene. The switch out makes it so that, of course, Annihilate not doing anything this turn, but you do have the option to bring out the Golden Go again, or you have the option, of course, of the Indeedee itself. But now still using that Trick Room turn, that final Trick Room turn, if I'm right. And then Annihilate then suddenly looking scary because we already know the Annihilate is faster than the Iron Jugglers. So it is pretty free to go for that potential Dream Punch.
I think it's going to likely want to wait for Trick Room to expire to then go ahead and utilize it. So maybe a bit of a safe play, or passive play, should I say, from the Tan side, going for the Protect for this turn in order to further ensure their subsequent turn and the sort of strategy going into it. However, this is the moment that Nate has to really make a decision. How do I take advantage of this? How should I sort of handle this play? Do I go on the offensive? Do I try to redirect if possible? But we are going to actually see a Protect coming up the mouse hold. Be quite interesting to see if the Annihilate has tried to go for the Drain Punch as... sorry, I'm flabbergasted because we don't commonly see Recover on Golden Go, which is enough to allow it to survive. And the Drain Punch did target down the Iron Jugulus. It did ignore that mouse hold, and of course now has brought the match down to a 3 versus 2 outside of Trick Room and Psychic Terrain.
Yeah, and now the Floodman can come in with that choice specs, which can deal a lot of damage, but you actually have 2 big threats in front of you that you have to decide what you will do. Luckily, the Annihilate not having set up any bulk ups just yet, not being able to go for any terrestrialization either. Fluttermane with that Dazzling Gleam with spread move could potentially do still a lot of damage, but KOing the Annihilate from full HP, I'm not so sure about that.
Yeah, and I think if you're in the town, you want to try to bring in your redirector at this point. It's quite difficult to sort of position it, given the fact that you've got both of your damage output Pokemon on the field, and you don't want any sort of directly KOing damage going into a slot if you so choose to try to do a bit of an aggressive switch in of the female Indeedee. But no switch-ins at the current moment. We're just going to see a redirecting Follow Me coming up from Nate's side. No Protect whatsoever. Picks up the KO. Dazzling Gleam from that Fluttermane. The Golden Go is out. However, the Annihilate did actually survive. Will get its Citrus Berry recovered, just to give it a tiny bit more health to sort of deal with this pressure. Drain Punch, not quite enough to pick up any sort of KO. It does get a tiny bit more recovery, like we mentioned, even further. However, right now, I think the main crucial point is you really want to try to protect this Annihilate in order to allow it to be enabled and pick up a KO. But this is a very tough scenario.
Yeah, this is a very tough scenario because that Indeedee is the only thing, and it can Follow Me trying to protect the Annihilate, but that Fluttermane going for that choice specs, Dazzling Gleam, doing massive amounts of damage, as we've just seen, as the Annihilate goes for a Protect. Seeing what will happen here. We do see the Dazzling Gleam from the Fluttermane going still into that Protect, and then next into that Indeedee, seeing how much damage we do. Oh! Just missing out on the kill, but the beat-up coverage from the mouse hold, just trying to make sure that the Indeedee at least goes down. And now it's, again, only the Annihilate onto the field. It always stays the last Pokemon.
It always is, bless it, unfortunately. But I think in this scenario, it's very difficult, nigh impossible for Natabi to be able to bring this back, since once again we saw Nate prioritize the repositioning and the later endgame sweep state of this Fluttermane to allow it to pick up the KO, since the Terra type was already utilized on the Titan side for the Golden Go. This win has gone over to Nate Wright. He's going to be going ahead and getting the 5-0 record going into round 6.
Yeah, that was an amazing match to watch, actually, because especially that last match, seeing how the Trick Room was working out for Nathan in the first 2 turns, and then Nate bringing it back with that Iron Jugglers, going fully Iron as well, trying to make sure that the control was there of those Snarls. And then suddenly Nathan, his Annihilate coming in, and was thinking, oh, this might actually pose a bit of trouble.
Yeah. And I think in that scenario, the Iron Jugulus was quite nice. It was sort of a especially offensive damage sponge that was able to sort of take in all of the pressure, exude from the Golden Go as well as that Hatterene, which unfortunately for itself didn't have a direct way to pick up any sort of substantial damage that was necessary onto the Iron Jugulus. It just goes to show why Assault Vest is actually quite a nice item.
It is
on
nice to
Iron
see.
Jugulus.
Yeah.
Like, and not commonly, I think we had seen Marcus Statter from, of course, Bochum Regionals, winner, the champion, kind of have a booster energy applied to itself, get that further enhancement in speed. However, this is a sort of complete opposite. Iron Jugulus, you've got super slow, super bulky, a really good answer to certain types of Trick Room scenarios.
Exactly. There have been like many ways to deal with Trick Room, and like most popular has been those Pokemon that have that Snarl, because lowering the special attack of the Armarouge, of the Hatterene, of the Indeedee, just making sure that everything gets slowed down a bit, because we are in Trick Room, so we gotta...
Naturally, you have to go slow.
Yeah, you have to go slow. And earlier with that Golden Go, going for that Terra, with the recover, trying to recover as much damage, so possibly could survive a Dazzling, but just a little bit too much damage on that to that Golden Go. It, of course, having that life or being a bit more offensive, and like it's hard to balance it wise, seeing at typings and what it changed, honestly.
Yeah, and I think that's a sort of interesting sort of play to it. You've got to consider, okay, sure, I could go ahead, get my Trick Room set up. How much utility am I going to get from it, however? And having something, a Pokemon such as Iron Jugulus, across the field, the way that it's able to just drain all of the damage output and still extend its longevity due to its very bulky training accompanied by that Assault Vest was absolutely key. And I think it really paid dividends for Nate going into that set, even though we felt like surely Nathan's got the advantage, he's got the Trick Room set up, but that's not all that matters. The real important thing is not obviously the friends that we've made along the way, but in that scenario about having the appropriate answers to sort of extend and expire that scenario and focus on your win condition. Is it still in sight or has it been cut off? And I think Nate did an incredible job about that and most deservingly got that set.
Exactly. Switching out immediately with its Flood Main, trying to keep it for later because it was a big threat, and like I was a bit scared because of the switching on the Mouse Hole into that Annihilate, just, well, no Terra type there, so into that Dazzle Gleam plus that Mickey Rain. Kind of scary to see, and it just going down made me think, like, is this it? Is this the way it goes? Because Annihilate was putting in so much work. I honestly thought that the Annihilate would have stayed around for like a couple of turns longer, but that adaptation with that Flood Main and still like thinking, okay, no, Annihilate is down. We have our next planet. Begin next phase. Like just,
Well, yeah, exactly, because I think it was quite interesting to actually see the switch up of the focus roles of the Pokemon. We saw in Game 1 and Game 2, the most pivotal Pokemon seemed to be the Annihilate and the Fluttermane over on Nate's side, so the Annihilate on both sides, that is. Whilst in Game 3, that shift brought the Golden Go into the fray, where Nathan was thinking, okay, Golden Go really did some good work Game 2, was able to keep me in the game going into Game 3.
Exactly.
Let me try to go for the mode of nasty plot, try to get Make It Rain as well as Thunderbolt pressure over onto Nate's side, however was met with the wall of which was Iron Jugulus, especially with that Steel Terra type. So being able to have that hindsight from Nate's side was really well done in order to adapt and force that win in their favor.
Yeah, it's I barely have any words for it. It was just well calculated. It was well put. It was just because we have seen all three games. We have seen Annihilate do so much work, but because earlier we were thinking, I myself was thinking, like, I don't really know why Iron Jugulus is coming. But as you said after Game 1, that Trick Room option might come, and so you keep bringing that Iron Jugulus in case, and in Game 3 it did. So very much prepared for it. So anyway, you still had it. It was still useful in the other games, don't get me wrong, but it was what I felt like Palavin could have been helpful as well because of those Terra Fire Annihilates is what I was thinking. But seeing how someone else, their mind works. And like, it's their team, of course. They piloted it perfectly. And they did not want to be surprised by any sort of trick room going up, which just showcases how well made the team itself is and how well it fits with the player itself.
Oh, most definitely. I think that's the sort of things I was thinking as well at some point. Paladin can actually put in some work here. But then again, that's the sort of difference as to why we're behind this desk and they're behind that one.
Exactly.
That's sort of the difference of the nuances between them. But of course, we are waiting for the winner's interview to be prepped up. But so far, Shimon, tell me.
Yeah.
Have you been enjoying the day? Because I have been having a fantasticuloso day. If that's a word.
Let's see. I think I've been enjoying it very much. I've seen a lot of people. People have been coming to me, congratulating me for being able to be here and talk a bit to them as well. And they have been playing well. I've been hearing a bit of whispers from players that I know. And it's I'm very happy to see that they still like to update me and see. And it's just overall a good, well, it's fun. And like I even have friends that just came over just to support other friends. You even were able to talk with them for a bit. And it's just one of those things where it's nice to be here.
Oh, 100%. I think just everyone's excited to be here. So there's a lot of passion and drive and just love for the game going into these sort of things. So that's why it was an absolute pleasure to be able to start having these live events come back at such a more frequent rate, you know, with the new year, the new season. So it has been absolutely fantastic to be able to sort of coordinate with others, with, let's say, travel or even team building, get that sort of excitement in the air going, and then finally put it out onto the stage, which is what we've been encountering so far. So I think there's been a lot of excitement being built up, even from the Sword and Shield era. A couple of those newer players were able to transition into an even newer game, of course with Scarlet and Violet, where there was so many different sort of change-ups when it came to the gameplay styles. We had Dynamax being the key sort of mechanic of that era, of that gen, and now we've got the transition from that where you had 3 turns that you could utilize in that Dynamaxed form or G-Maxed form. Stay away, Charizard. Please?
No, not again.
G-Max Wildfire was too busted. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it was pretty crazy.
It was a tiny bit. It was a bit spicy, a bit too spicy. But then we've transitioned into the Terrastal mechanic, where it sort of gives a bit of a insight as to what previous metagames used to be prior to that type of overpowered mechanic, which is definitely fascinating, very interesting. It does complement a more offensive-based sort of play style, but going into the scenario where you got a bit slower gameplay, you've slowed things down, you start seeing the re-immersion of a lot of passive switches, good pivot action going, so it has been an absolute treat to see everyone actually enjoy this playstyle too.
Exactly, because of course when you are, well, Gigantamaxed and stuff, it is a very big move coming your way that you suddenly switch something in.
Quite literally.
Yeah, could you imagine like switching a mouse hole into, I even forgot the names.
G-Max Wildfire.
That's it, G-Max Wildfire.
Under the sun.
That mouse will be screaming as well, like, what am I doing in this position right now? Because Frankguard is nice, of course, it's still a bit like that mouse itself would not be liking taking those attacks. And it's fun to see what people have been doing with these terrestrializations, because you haven't used it for one certain Pokemon, you have been using it for a bit more offensive. Like you have the Dragonites, for example, Dragonites for the Terra Flying and the Terra Normal. That is something that people have been playing the most. Terra Normal just for that priority, extreme speed, make it much more powerful, and that Terra Flying just to boost that Terra Blast with its flying type a bit even more.
Right, exactly, and I think that's something that had been lacking a bit from Dragonite, to have a very consistent damage output flying type move, which is why it marries so well with the Terra Blast sort of mechanic, where you can utilize the flying Terra, have the Terra Blast available, and all of a sudden you got a super reliable flying type, same type attack bonus move in combination with an additional boost of adaptability sort of scenario, and you can't miss. You can't miss it. Sorry, Fly, you've flown out of the building. Like, I don't know. Like, for me personally, yeah, it's out of the window. Terra Blast is the most optimal way to sort of run any sort of non-hurricane rain style core Dragonites, which tend to maybe have multi-scale since you don't have the use of the attack, the physical attack stat, which is what Inner Focus tends to bring. So you get rid of flinches as well as any sort of intimidate pressure coming from the other side of the field.
Yeah, it's just interesting to see because you have these Pokemon also with like their 4 times weaknesses. For example, we've had that guard jump earlier as well. It's 4 times weak to that ice type move. But if you Terra Fire,
not anymore.
No longer. You can't touch me.
Yeah, I mean, we saw Edu use it quite well earlier on in the previous stream matches too. I believe it was a Fire Terra type at the time, right? And it did put in some really good pressure. It had Earthquake, Stomping Tantrum, Dragon Claw, and Protect. So no Garchomps of the past that we've seen, even at the earliest stages of this Series 1 Regulation A format. We had the Sword Stance set up sort of Garchomp, which is always a classic, right? We've had the right, and we've had the various sort of other Sandvale Garchomps in combination with Tyranitar Weather, which. Sure, it's not as consistent, but it can quite literally throw a spanner in the works if your opponent isn't anticipating it.
It is one of those things where it might not be used now because like the meta has developed, but it's always fun to see to bring one of those teams, as we actually have seen just with the Lilycole, which is something that you see like almost immediately used, but then a bit like people tend to forget it, and then later on it is back again. And speaking of back again,
we've got the winner's interview prepped up. So if, of course, we want to go ahead and we want to hear from our trainer, we're going to cut to a very short transition, should I say, not a break, where we'll be able to hear more, of course, from Nate Wright, which has gone ahead and been crowned the winner of Round 5 Swiss.
Casters, I am joined by the winner of the Round 5 here in the Utrecht Special Event 2023, Nate Wright. Congratulations, Nate. How are you feeling after that fantastic game?
Ooh, I'm feeling relieved and like a little bit stressed because that was definitely a stressful match. But yeah, definitely a lot of relief just to have it done, Yeah,
absolutely. You both seem to have somewhat similar strategies with the Mouse Hold Annihilate,
sure.
but Nathan was committing a bit harder to the Annihilate Mouse Hold version. What made you decide to slightly lean away and more heavily rely on the Fluttermane instead?
Just in testing, like Fluttermane Mouse Hold has been like my go-to against Mouse Save because I can just take out the Mouse Hold or like redirect away the beat-ups and like just kind of put them on the back foot and just like take out everything next to the Annihilate, which kind of happened in Game 1, so that was kind of my go-to. Game 2, I like switched it up a little bit, but then Game 3, I'm like, oh, he's just going to go Mouse Save again. Let me just lead my anti-Mouse Save lead, and it didn't really go that way.
Yeah, absolutely. How were you feeling after you saw, okay, he looks like he's going with the Trick Room related strategy here. What are you going to do to adapt to that? So how are you feeling after you saw that lead in Game 3?
Yeah, after I saw the lead, I was like, this is like not looking good. Like I was like, this is a not great lead for like what I had on the field at that time. I kind of just had to like stall my way out of it and like make a smart Terra with my Iron Jugulus and get that in and protect the right turns with Mouse Hold just to like get the Trick Room over with. But as soon as I saw the lead, I was very like not ready and not prepared, and I did not think the game was going to go well at all.
Yeah, absolutely. What were you thinking when you saw Recover on the Golden Go? A very uncommon move. Usually we see Protect in that slot.
Yeah.
What were you thinking when you saw the Golden Go for that Recover?
I was kind of shocked, like seeing it on the team sheet, and I just had to make sure I was like consistently damaging it enough so that like my Fluttermane could clean up the late game. So that's why I had the Dark Pulse there at the end of the Trick Room turns, but yeah. Yeah,
absolutely. And then we saw the fabled beat-up KO
exactly.
to end that game, which was absolutely brilliant to see.
For
so
sure.
Really good showing so far, 5-0, only 2 more wins to guarantee you make it into that day 2. So how are you feeling your chances to get to that day 2?
I'm feeling pretty good. Just going to keep playing my game, like do the best I can. And if I don't do well, then I get to explore the Netherlands. I've never been here before, and it's like beautiful here. So I think it's like a win-win either way.
Yeah, I was going to say, because you've come internationally, what brought you over to the Netherlands? Was it just so that you could experience the Netherlands as well as competing in a tournament?
I'm studying abroad in the Czech Republic right now, so it's just like easier for me to get to the EU events. So yeah, it was just like flights are a lot cheaper in the EU, so I could just come over here, get to see the Netherlands, and also play some Pokemon. So it was like a win-win. Yeah,
absolutely. And what plans do you have for the rest of the season? Do you have many more tournaments? Are you going to be able to push for a qualification for the World Championships?
I think I'm going to go to EUIC in April, and then after that, I'm not sure. Maybe Malmo, but like maybe not. But definitely EUIC. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll have to keep an eye on you for that one, as well as in this tournament as well. 5-0 is a fantastic record. Congratulations, and we'll be following you as we go forward. But what we'll be doing right now is cutting to a short break. So congratulations, Nate, and we'll be having some fantastic games coming up shortly. So stay tuned.
Thank you.